What's going on? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, and from 1250 The Fan in Milwaukee, Bart Winkler is on the show. What's going on, man?
Hoppe, what's happening, bro?
Bro, I have, I wouldn't say a fascination with you, but it's really, weird. So you're a guy that I've wanted to talk to at the morning show boot camp. And, whenever I would run into you, I was like, sort of inebriated, not badly, but it was where like I didn't like know how to like introduce myself. And then I was like looking through people to add on Twitter, and I'm like, oh, there's the guy I never formally said hi to. It's a weird thing. The morning show boot camp, you have like 500 people there, and I'm like, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I hated that thing. It's a well-run thing for what it is, but they send me and my co-host, and we're in sports, but they sent us anyway, so we took the trip, you know?
Yeah.
But we're like the only sports guys, so some of the stuff still works. Like, it's the boot camp, it teaches you about all this morning show stuff. Some of it works, but then they also had the sports guy from Boston that came up, and he sat up there and goes, my industry's a joke. Sports radio sucks. I'm like, I mean, come on, man. I'm trying here. I'm taking notes. I'm like, being engaged, and then you just fly this guy and the crap all over it. So but the drinking part was good. There was a lot of drinking.
Oh, it was great.
I like that part of it. Yeah.
Well, what's funny is you see all the like mom and pop talk shows to like hot AC shows that are like clean on air, and then you get them drunk and they are the complete opposite of what they are on air. That's what was funny.
Yeah, that's something that there should be, if they're going to do this boot camp.
Yeah.
You know, because you have like the mom and pop, like, let me just throw out two names, like a Carol and Doug, the Morning Wife team in, Asheville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And you listen and they're like, oh, it's just such great radio. But then they go to this thing and they get bombed. So they need to like take some video of that or make some sort of, because I think the listeners of their show and all these shows across the country, they would appreciate seeing the friendly mom and pop radio show just get tanked on the streets of Atlanta,
Well, I'm not going to say who, but one of the major radio DJs there, like one of the big names, he was talking to me and he was like, Hoppe, he's like, never get married. And I was like, but you're married. And he goes, exactly. And I was like, what about kids? He goes, they're okay. And he even talks about it on air, but it was so funny. And then his wife called and he's like, ugh. And he's like, hi, how are you? It's weird seeing all the guys that are like in their like 40s talking about like, oh, don't do it. And then their wife will text and then they're like, hi.
Well, dude, like so I'm in sports radio and getting into that, it's like, I'm happily married. We've got a young 18-month-old son, but I'm like the anomaly because everybody in sports radio is like proud of their 3 divorces. We've got this commercial that runs on our sports radio station that goes, has this ever happened to you when you get divorced? As if like divorce is as common as a rainstorm, has this ever happened to you when you get divorced? Well, no, I'm trying not for that to happen, but that seems to be a badge of honor in my neck of the woods.
Well, I work in hot talk radio, so I host this show on the side, and I work at 102.5 The Bone, which is like hot talk radio for guys, and we air a divorce commercial where it talks about a guy named Lou. It talks about his like multiple marriages, and it's like Lou is on number 2, and then he's like, do you want to not lose half your things? It's very endearing.
But it works. I mean, divorce lawyers and sports radio and talk radio, man, it works. So a lot of people are doing something wrong, but someone's doing something right.
So I grew up listening to 670. I was like a huge Mike North fan, huge Terry Boers fans. And over the years, when I would listen to them, they would have those like, at least in Chicago, because that's where I'm from, they would have the crazy guys. One was actually Mike from Milwaukee, Joe from Schaumburg or whatever. All these weird guys that would call in drunk and just do these weird routines. Do you guys have that up there in Milwaukee? Because I know it's a drinking town, so I don't know if you guys have like regulars that are just maniacs.
What's great about the regulars, and some of these people now I've met that call in. Some I haven't. It's just they're so, they see an opportunity where they can be a part of an experience or a part of a show. And some of the people that call, like if I would try to script them out, I couldn't. It's just unbelievable. We have this guy, Singing Dick, who calls and sings songs for us. We have this really great caller. His name is Rick in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And he's got a high pitch. He's like always hating everything. But I haven't heard from him in months. And so now I don't know if he's dead. So I don't know how to approach that because he could just be dead. So we have a lot of people that call in regularly. And, every month, 1 month, there'll be a new person that kind of emerges. We had a lady that lived in Florida that loved the Brewers. We called her Brew Crew Sue. And so she'll still call from time to time. It's fun because it's great that it's great that that's one of the things I want to do when you have a show is cultivate it where it's it's part of the playground where you're playing, but if you want to come over and mess around, you can do that too. So I'm proud of that. I don't know what most radio people think, but I do love bad callers. I think the worse, the better. There gets to be a cutoff point where a call is so bad that you can't listen. Sometimes people will call up and just talk, and there's nothing to them. They're boring. But we have a guy, we call him Notebook Mike, because like Bobo on Howard Stern, he fills out a page of notes and then calls and tells us his notes. And his delivery is it's like bad but also good. You think you're like, oh, this guy. I like the callers that you hear him and you're like, oh man, this guy. But then you listen to the whole call because you got to know what he says. So there's a lot of sports radio guys. There's a lot of radio guys that will be one way or the other with callers. Do you like them? Do you not like them? I don't like the caller that just calls and says, oh man, I wish the Packers would have ran more on third down. I like the guy who is a little offbeat and then can add something to the show.
What was the day like? So I'm kind of a Buccaneers fan. I've lived in Tampa for 6 years. I'm a Bears fan, but I'm just done with them. I'm not even being a bandwagoner. If they go on to win the Super Bowl with Andy Dalton, that's fine. I don't care. But I was going to become a Buccaneers fan, but I had pure hatred for Jameis. So I just had to wait for him to leave. And then the first year Brady comes, he wins. But what was the next day like after Aaron Rodgers lost that game to Tom Brady? Because I have a pure fascination with Aaron Rodgers. I despise him because I'm a Bears fan, and growing up, we would have debates who is going to be better, him or Jay Cutler, and I was the only kid in my class that thought that Aaron Rodgers was going to be better, and I've believed in him for 15 years, but he also irritates me. So what was the energy like after that disappointing loss to the Buccaneers?
I'm going to take you back 6 years, I think it was. The 2014 NFC Championship game. Packers had a 16-0 lead, 5 minutes left. They're up a couple scores. It looks like they're going to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And then they blow it in horrific fashion, play after play after play, and then it ends with an onside kick. It goes to overtime. Seahawks win. They go to the Super Bowl. That day was so crushing. We bring that day up probably once every show. It always somehow comes up some way. And ever since then, the teams that we root for have gotten so close, and this can't get over the hump, whether it's the Wisconsin Badgers basketball team or their football team. The Bucks should have a finals appearance by now. They don't. The Brewers were one game away from the World Series 3 years ago. So it all kind of starts with that game, and there's just been heartbreak ever since. Now, this game against Tampa, I thought it was really it was bad. They took a big lead at first, and then the Packers come back, and then Tom Brady throws 3 interceptions in a half.
Yes.
Okay, and still wins. Only guy to ever do that in a championship game since Russell Wilson, who did it in that 2014 game I mentioned. But so the next day, to get to the question, the next day it was, well, this is really bad. It sucks. They whatever. But at least the 2014 game was the first punch, and then this one felt like another jab. So if the 2014 game never happened, this one would have felt even worse. So that day it was bad. We were all upset and a lot of calls and a lot of frustration and what do you do next? But we thought, okay, it's fine. What's been interesting is since that day, I think we didn't realize until the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. The next day, then that's when it hit me. Like, oh my God, they blew it again. Tom Brady had 3 interceptions. So it was actually at the day after the Super Bowl was more of the classic sports radio you think of where everyone calls, everyone's mad. It was the day after the Super Bowl when the Buccaneers just smoked the Chiefs that we really realized as Packer fans what opportunity slipped away from us. So the day after the game was, I think I was in denial in the stages of grief, and then it was just pure anger the day after the Super Bowl, and I think a lot of Packer fans felt the same way that day.
I can't figure out my take on Aaron Rodgers. I like to think that he's like someone like Kevin Durant or whoever who like won a ring, is an all-time great, but like doesn't win enough, if that makes sense. Like I'm trying to figure out where I would put him because he's definitely one of the best, and I think he's my favorite quarterback to watch as much as I dislike him because I'm a Bears fan, I guess. He's so much fun to watch when he's good, but there's something, I don't know what's off about him, and it's nothing to do with him and his family. I don't care about that, but there's something where there's like a piece missing. I don't know if you noticed that.
Well, I think the piece that's missing is a good defense.
Yeah.
You know, you look at Tom Brady over his career, I think there's some stat, I can't remember it, so I'm going to make up one that sounds similar. His defenses in the playoffs, average, they allow only like 17 points a game or something. And then the Rodgers defenses, they average like 34 points allowed a game. Rodgers, his playoff history, you know, there's some games where in the playoffs, maybe he doesn't play as well as you would expect. That Seattle game could be. But also, man, there's just been terrible, he fumbles first play of overtime.
Yeah.
They never get the ball back. Or they get to overtime and then they don't get the ball. Or that Rodgers leads a 2-minute drive, but it doesn't count because the other team scores. And that's what was so frustrating about the Buccaneer game. All we wanted is for Rodgers to have a chance to win the game. Not the defense has to stop them. We want Rodgers to have a chance. Rodgers had a chance to score on a 4th down and maybe go for 2, tie the game late in the game, but they kicked the field goal. So it was like, it's always, you're right, it's always something. It's not always of Rodgers doing, and a lot of times it's not. It's just, it's very unlucky. If you put Tom Brady here in Green Bay, he probably has the 1 Super Bowl. And if you put Rodgers in New England, he's probably got 4 or 5. So it's just been bad circumstances that have kind of cost this guy. He's an all-time great player. I think everybody agrees on that, but it's criminal in terms of sports. For him to be here for 15 years and to have just 1 Super Bowl, and I know that Super Bowl star franchises are like, what? No way. I'd love 1 Super Bowl. But you get Aaron Rodgers, and then you get Favre for another 15 years, and each of those guys only had 1 Super Bowl apiece. That's bad.
How badly do you hate the Bears? Because, like, when I cared about the Bears, maybe until 2014, I hated the Packers, and now I don't really care anymore. How badly in its prime did you dislike the Bears, the franchise, whatnot?
I wouldn't say I've hated the Bears since, I'm a kid, and I was born in 84, so like 89, 88, 89, 90 is when I'm really getting into it. And the Packers were not great, but the Bears were, they're kind of like about the same, meddling, maybe in the playoffs, maybe not. And it was a true rivalry. Like it was 2 kind of teams that, there's a long history and it was like a rivalry. But since Favre came and now with Rodgers, it really has been one-sided dominance.
Yes. For
Green Bay. The Bears will, they haven't won every game, but the Packers have won all the important ones, including the NFC Championship game. So it's not, I don't hate the Bears. I want the Bears to be the Packers' rival.
Yes.
I like that rivalry. I like the fact that there's a lot of connections that go beyond, the field. Like way back when these teams were starting, George Halas would drive to Green Bay to talk to the city council to try to help keep the Packers in Green Bay because he understood what that connection was, Packers and Bears. The team I hate is Minnesota.
Oh,
I
God,
hate
yes.
Minnesota.
Oh, God.
I hate them. I try to think, well, Bart, if you weren't born in Wisconsin and you were born in Chicago, what would your life be like? And I'd say, oh, man, I would be like I would be such a Bears fan. You know, Soldier Field and just everything with the 85 Bears. And my image of Chicago is always that river with jazz music playing like it's the start of an 80s movie, like a John Hughes movie.
Yeah.
And I think Chicago's such a great town. I could imagine growing up a Bears fan. If I grew up in like outside of St. Paul and had to learn about this Vikings team, I would never like them. I don't understand anyone that does like them on purpose. So I hate the Vikings. I love the Bears as a rival. I want the Packers and Bears to have a rivalry. I don't want it to be the Vikings. I hate them. I hate the Vikings. That's who I hate.
You know what team I don't care about? They're not even on my radar. It's the Lions. Even with Matthew there, I was rooting for him to be good. The Lions mean so little to me as a Bears fan. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, same here. It sucks, but you know, I mean, I guess it's not. It's like free wins.
Yeah.
But they never have sparked that. You know, that's a franchise to root for them. And you have Barry Sanders and Kelvin Johnson, two guys that they thought the franchise was so bad that they not only left the team, they just flat out retired from football. And it happened twice. That's a bummer. So I do feel for Lions fans, the few that are out there.
Yeah, and the thing too, going back to when you were saying the 2014 game for the Packers was like the downfall of like sports for you. For me, it was that 2010 championship game going into 2011 when Jay got like injured or whatever. I don't even know. No one even knows what really happened. I think it was his thumb or something or his knee. And then they brought in Haney, and then Haney threw that interception to BJ Raji, I believe his name was, yeah. That was to me when, like, I mean, the Blackhawks have won since then. The Cubs have won. But to me, for the Bears overall, that was that and then Derrick Rose tearing his ACL were like the two defining moments for those two teams.
Oh, man. Yeah, I wish the Bulls were better, you know, because we see them, the Bucks, a lot. I don't like the Cubs. I'm not into that. I could do without the Cubs. But, yeah, I wish, you know, those rivalries were a little bit better because it's so close. It's 90 minutes away. I mean, I live closer to Soldier Field than I do Lambeau in Milwaukee. So, yeah, you would like there to be that rivalry for sure. You know what's funny?
So I grew up a diehard Cubs fan. I remember 1998 with the home run chase and Kerry Wood, I believe. I remember 2003. I remember 07, 08. And I was glad when they won the World Series. I don't know why. Maybe it's because they ran Joe Madden out of town and have done nothing positive. I hate the Cubs now. I'm with you, bro. I first was a diehard fan when they won. Maybe 2 tears went down my eye, and then I went back to bed. I have now watched the baseball game since 2016. Them winning, bro, and then doing nothing ever since then. Like, I don't ever have to even think about the Cubs again. That was it for me. I was done.
I mean, I've grown up in Wisconsin my whole life. The Cubs were my first favorite baseball team. So I did like them once because they were on TV every day.
Yeah.
And so in the summer, I'm home. The Brewers, now every game's on TV everywhere. But in the early 90s, mid-90s, the Cubs were on every day. The Braves were on every day on WGN and TBS. And the Brewers were on like once a week. And so I try to get down there once a year to County Stadium. But no, I was into the Cubs. I was into Andre Dawson and Ryan Sandberg and all that. I quit baseball in the strike in 94. I flat out quit. Didn't like it again until the home run chase in 98, which is why I'm so sympathetic towards steroid users, because without them, I don't care about baseball. And then I got more into the Brewers. I liked the Brewers along with the Cubs. Those early 90 Brewer teams, too, I loved. And every time they were in my hometown with their little Fan Fest caravan, I'd go for sure. You know, had clothes and everything. But the Cubs and Brewers, yeah, I liked them both. But they were also in different leagues. The Brewers used to be in the American League and the Cubs in the National. So it's fine to have one of each. But then the Cubs and Brewers, the Brewers moved to the National League, so I hate the Cubs.
I don't know what other teams the national media would say are fun to attend, but I've been to maybe 5 Brewer games in my lifetime, and I feel like that experience doesn't get enough attention. Like, I thoroughly have fun whenever I'm in Milwaukee at a baseball game.
Yeah, it's great, man. And, you know, they're going to allow fans in there again. It won't be like the full crowds, but to have a day where you like just tailgate and hang out, and then you're in the stadium, and there's always going to be a game because it's got a roof, and hopefully it's on a day where it's open so you can really enjoy it. But it is fun, man. It is. Well, there's a lot of people there to watch a baseball game, but there's also a lot of people there to party, and I think it's a fun time either way.
What is your take? The Bucks are in third place, but no one's really talking about them. I can't figure out what I think about Giannis whatsoever. So what's the energy like about them up in Milwaukee?
Well, so we're off 2 years where they were the best regular season team, and then they blew it in the playoffs. Against the Raptors 2 years ago, they were up 2-0, should have been up 3-0, and then lost 4 straight after dominating all year. And then last year they go to the bubble and get smoked by a Heat team that I don't think was better than the Bucks. They just let them shoot threes and never made a change to stop it. They're a good team. I think they should, they'd be I put them right kind of level with the Sixers. You play that series, it's going to go 7. The Nets, though, right now I think the Nets, you got Kevin Durant and James Harden and Kyrie Irving. I mean, the Nets are amazingly good. I think the Bucks can beat the Nets if they play perfect. Like, they got to play their best basketball. They got to Coach Budenholzer has to coach not like an idiot like the last couple of seasons. And they just have to, they have to play their best every night and not make any really crucial mistakes. But I think there's definitely, there's excitement with them as there has been the last few years. We kind of just want to get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because they're obviously in, and you're going to beat whoever you play in the first round. The Bucks they're a top 3 team in the East. They're top 5 team in the NBA. So you go through whatever you can now to see what Adetokounmpo has been doing, to see him playing at an MVP level again. You need everybody else on the team to kind of match at least his effort. I think there's excitement, but I think the year for them to win was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
When they lost to Toronto. We'll see, though. I just think Brooklyn's too good. Going
back to the Nets, my big thing, and I haven't watched a lot of NBA this year, but I watch the videos online. I keep up with the news and whatnot. To me, the X factor on how far they go, because Kevin Durant, Irving, that's fine and all. But to me, it really goes down to if James Harden wants to show up in the playoffs. That dude, whenever it matters, from what I've seen, just kind of, chokes and isn't there. And I think if James Harden can really show up in the playoffs and, make what he's making, and because it feels like he's a little overpaid for how he's not incredibly clutch. And I feel like if James Harden can be what he's supposed to be, then the Nets are just, there's nothing getting in their way.
Yeah, I think Harden, though, the way he's been playing since he got to Brooklyn has been incredible. I mean, his MVP odds are going up. He's an assist machine now. Harden in Houston, it was kind of a one-man show.
Yeah.
And he had Westbrook for the year, and then he had Paul for the year. He doesn't have to be the star. He can be one of 3 stars, or he can be like the facilitator for Kyrie and for KD when he comes back. I think Harden likes this. I think he likes this role. And I think, I'm somebody I've never liked Harden. I haven't liked how he plays. I haven't liked how he always initiates contact to draw fouls. I haven't liked him. Here in Brooklyn, he is like a different guy. And he had to get supersized and sit out games and be stuck at the strip club to get traded. But now that he's traded, he's where he wants to be. I'm with you. But this is a different James Harden, at least the one we've seen since the trade.
I don't know if you ever have it when you're talking to a person and a thought kind of comes into your brain and it's like your life is flashing before your eyes because you're remembering something that you can't believe is that long ago. But you know who just came into my brain as we're talking? What did you think of Brandon Jennings, bro?
Brandon Jennings.
I know, right?
Brandon Jennings, this guy is a legend in Milwaukee. Maybe in a good way, maybe not, but he is a legend.
What makes him a legend?
I remember the draft that he got drafted in. He showed up late to the podium. It was he got drafted at 7 or 9 or something. He shows up at pick 12, 13, 14, hugs the commissioner. So we fall in love with this guy. One of his very first games, he puts up 55 points as a rookie. And you're like, oh my God, this guy's great. And then the Bucks somehow, it's a bad Bucks team. I think they were under 500, but they played the Heat as the number 1 seed with LeBron, Bosh, D-Wade. They ask Jennings, they say, are you going to beat the Heat? He goes, yeah, we're going to beat the Heat. Bucks and 6. Bucks and 6 always. It's for the culture. And, Wade then was told, hey, Jennings says Bucks and 6. And Wade laughed. And then they swept the Bucks. But that kind of cocky attitude for him to say Bucks and 6 is the rallying cry here now. Bucks and 6 is what we always say after everything. Bucks and 6. Jennings has become a legend for that reason. He played for a few other teams. He came back, played a little bit for like a month. But yeah, Brandon Jennings. The guy is a legend more for what he said though, than how he played.
What I remember about him was I remember him saying it, and I think it was like the first quarter of the first game. From what I remember like it seemed possible. Like I think the Heat weren't taking him seriously. Now, granted, this was 10 years ago, but I remember things were kind of like maybe, and then all of a sudden LeBron was like, F this, and then it just took over.
Yeah. Because you watch these games and you think for a second, yeah, you're right. You said it. That's what happened. You believe for a little bit. And there's part of the Heat that probably like let that happen. All right, let's give them a quarter, get them all excited, and then just blow them out. The Bucks had no chance against that team. But again, Bucks and 6, it's become a rallying cry. That's what you got to do as a sports fan. You got to take what should be an embarrassing moment and own it and turn it into your own. So I'm forever thankful for Brandon Jennings for that.
What's the overall vibe about Ray Allen? Because I feel like everyone thinks about him playing for the Celtics, but no one thinks about the fact that he played in Milwaukee.
Well, yeah, or the Sonics.
Yeah.
Ray, yeah. And the Heat, nationally, it's forgotten that he played here. But we love Ray. Ray Allen was great. Ray Allen was great when he was here. He's great every time that he comes back or has any affiliation with the Bucks. We love Ray Allen. I think a lot of people that are, in my age bracket Bucks fans now, he was like their first, true star that was here. They had the team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2001 that got screwed by the refs in the league when they put AI in the Sixers against the Lakers. We still believe that to this day. But yeah, we loved Ray. And then George Karl was the coach, and he traded him for a washed-up Gary Payton. And so his time here ended too soon. But, he wore 34, which is what Giannis wears now, and you never thought that there'd be a more beloved guy to wear that number. But then Giannis comes in here, and he's the guy now. But Ray Allen, I can't think of one bad thing from a Bucks fan I've ever heard about Ray Allen.
Now, before I let you go, where can people find your show, and why should they tune in?
Well, you got to tune in because I'll tell you why I tune in. I think radio is awesome, but I also think that just like that guy that spoke at boot camp, that sports radio, that there's a lot about sports radio that's a joke. There's a lot of people that I think it's an industry where there's a lot of people that are just kind of, I don't want to age shame, guys that have been doing it for decades that are set in their ways, that don't really watch the game, don't understand the game, don't understand like the NBA culture or Twitter or anything outside of the game, just rely on telling the same old stories, reading a box score, having a familiar, friendly voice, collecting a paycheck and going home. There's still too much of that in the business, and there's too much of that in the business because for some reason there's still an appetite for that, man. There's an appetite for that. I don't know what it is. There's an appetite for it. The guys that you see on Twitter that are saying, this generation's soft, we can't say anything anymore. That's the generation that used to do prank phone calls on the radio of, foreign voices, and they don't understand why they shouldn't have been doing that in the first place.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad that needs to be weeded out of sports radio. I'm trying to be the counter to that, and hopefully the new generation. So if you're like an Atlanta Hawks fan and you love the Braves, I don't know, we're pretty heavy Wisconsin. But I'm a guy passionate for my teams. I love my teams. I watch every game possible of my teams. I'll watch every game possible that's sports, even sports that are terrible, like NASCAR. I watch just so I know. So it's like we love sports on the show. We're passionate about it. Again, we try not to take ourselves too seriously. The station, 12:50 a.m., the Fan in Milwaukee. I'm on Twitter at WinkThinks, and then the show at Bart Winkler Show.
Well, before I let you go, I just want to say your point about the boomer radio guys. Dude, there's one in every market, and a lot of times it's the guys that were the king in the 90s that were kind of borderline shock jock. Insert man cow reference here. You know what I mean? Where they can't let it go. It's just fascinating to watch.
Yeah, but the thing is, there's still an appetite for that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because I listened to this guy with my dad, and now I'm his age, and now radio is so tough because podcasts, I'm talking terrestrial radio, it's tough because the people that do pick terrestrial radio are more habit driven than anybody. You can listen to a podcast. I mean, the competition that's out there is extraordinary. There's so much competition out there, so many audio options that if you're going to listen to me, yeah, you may listen to a podcast if you like, but my main shtick is I'm on terrestrial radio from 6 to 10, and that is such a habit-based business that, I've been now on the show with the station in the morning for 5 years, with the station for 7. I don't have the 30-plus years that I'm going up against. I don't have the former Packer, that we've known for 30 years that I'm going up against. So it's hard it's really hard to break through on terrestrial radio. And it's to the people that have found me and to the audience I do have, I can't thank that enough.
Well, dude, it's been a lot of fun having you on the show. And if they ever do have a morning show boot camp again, I promise I'll come up to you and we'll drink. Sounds good?
Well, yeah, if I go. I never want to go to one of those things again, but if the offer is there to hang with you, then yeah, I'll maybe reconsider.
Awesome. Thank you, bro.
Thanks, man.
All right, bye.